Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us out here. Today we're going to be introducing .app domain names and how to secure them. I'm Ben McElwain. I am the lead engineer of Google Registry and the co-product manager of the .app launch. And we're going to be explaining a little bit later what the Google Registry is exactly.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Porter-Felt. I'm an engineering manager and a longtime engineer on the Google Chrome team. Now, about a year ago, a year ago, Ben came to my team and I with an idea. And now he works in the registry team. And they had an idea that they were going to be launching this TLD, top-level domain, is what we're going to be talking about today. And the idea was to use it to make memorable and meaningful domain names. Now, I assume that all of you here like short, meaningful domain names because they tie into your brand and help users get back to them. We also like them in terms of usability of the web. We think that URLs are easier to use if the domains are something that people can actually remember and ideally differentiate between the real brand when they're trying to actually get to that website versus other content that might be spam, phishing, or spoofing. But that wasn't all. It wasn't just about coming up with meaningful and memorable domain names. Ben was also aware of the fact that Google for a long time has been pushing on HTTPS adoption. And he wanted to use this feature launch as a way to tie into that and help make the web safer. HTTPS is important because it keeps our users' content private and secure. HTTPS provides encryption between the client and the server such that anyone in the middle, like the internet service provider or someone else who's on the same wireless network, isn't able to either eavesdrop on the information while it's on transit or modify it. And pushing on HTTPS adoption has been a big effort at Google and, in fact, more or less across the security community for the last several years. Back in early 2015, which is when I started working on this, we saw that only about a quarter to a third of pages loaded in Chrome were HTTPS. So at that point, HTTP was still dominant, and HTTPS was the exception. Well, moving forward to today, I'm really excited that we're at a point where about 75% of all page loads in Chrome are now HTTPS. So we've seen a huge shift. And now we're focusing on how do we get everything to be all HTTPS? How do we get that last little chunk? Looking back at 2014, Google premiered a HTTPS ranking boost. So the idea at the time was that websites would get a bump if they supported HTTPS. Let's Encrypt, which is an awesome service that you should check out if you haven't already. They provide free HTTPS certificates as well as tooling to make it easy to manage certificates, launched in late 2015. And Let's Encrypt helped a lot of websites get online, particularly websites where the developers were not able to previously afford certificates. Even though $10 and $15 sounds cheap, some people still couldn't afford it. Also in late 2015, Google started indexing HTTPS websites by default, meaning that if a website was available both over HTTP and HTTPS, we would index the HTTPS version. We also released a transparency report showing that at the time, only about a quarter of the top 100 sites supported HTTPS by default, and now it's at 83. Also, near and dear to my heart, starting in 2017, Chrome started labeling HTTP websites as not secure in the URL bar if they had a password form field or a credit card form field, because those are particularly sensitive data types. We ratcheted that up a little bit. In mid-2017, we started labeling more pages as not secure if they were any HTTP page viewed in incognito or any HTTP page with any kind of form field on it. And we recently announced that starting in Chrome 68, which is in July, all HTTP pages will be labeled as not secure in the URL bar. All right, so Ben was aware of this, and he was really excited about HTTPS himself, as was the rest of his team. And so they wanted to bring these two things together. A product that encourages memorable domain names, as well as the security features of HTTPS. So Ben, tell them what the idea was.
Yeah. All right. So today we are launching the world's first entirely secure all HTTPS open top-level domain. And I know that's a little bit to unpack, so we're going to explain that. So first, what's a top-level domain? Let's look at that. All right. So a top-level domain is the last part of the domain name. It's what's right of the final dot. Top-level domains are run by registries, like Google Registry. That's my team, for instance. And that's in contrast to a domain name registrar, which is where you would go to buy domains. So a registrar will sell domains from a variety of different top-level domains, whereas the registries run their own TLDs, and that TLD is only run by that registry. So you don't interact with the registries too much, but we're kind of the big database behind the scenes running the domains. So let's go through some examples of top-level domains, really obvious ones, .com, .net, .org. These are the original generic TLDs, and the important thing about them is they are open, so anyone can register them without restrictions, and I'm sure many people here have some of those. Next up, we have the sponsored TLDs. These have restrictions on registration. They've also been out, these ones at least, have been out for a very long time, .edu, .gov, and .mil. And for instance, if you want a .mil domain, you have to be associated with the US government. So that's the restriction. And then third category would be the country code top-level domains. So some examples would be .uk, .de, and .io. And you know it's a country code top-level domain because it has 2 characters. So if you didn't know, .io is not a generic TLD for coding, even though that's how it's used. It's really for the British Indian Ocean Territory. And whether or not you can register a domain name on these depends on the country. Some are completely open, and some have restrictions where you have to be a citizen of that country to register. And then finally, we get to the most recent ones, the new generic TLDs. So here we have .how, .mina, and .google. And these started being launched in 2012 in the ICANN first expansion round of top-level domains. And there might be another one coming soon. And these 3 examples happen to be ones run by my team, the Google Registry. And one interesting thing to note here is .mina is actually a Unicode TLD. So if you haven't seen any of these out in the wild yet, just know that they're around. And these are a big mix of open, restricted, closed, and like brand TLDs. Like .google is a brand TLD, so we're the only people who register domain names on there. And in addition to all of these existing ones and thousands of others that already exist, today, specifically as of 9 a.m. this morning, there is a new top-level domain on the web. And that top-level domain is .app. So yeah, today we're Thank you. Yeah. So we're introducing .app. .app is the new home on the web for mobile apps, web apps, progressive web apps, desktop apps, app developers, and pretty much anything else you can imagine that has anything to do with apps. So we envision people using it to host landing pages, server endpoints, marketing pages, deep linking URLs that go directly into a specific piece of content, and pretty much anything else. And we've launched .app as an open TLD, which means that you can register it without restrictions. So anyone can buy a .app domain name and use it for any purpose. But obviously, because the string is .app, it would probably make sense to use it for something associated with .app. And you should all pay attention to the rest of this talk because everyone here is getting a free .app domain name. I am. And not just everyone in this